Okay, do I even remember how this works? Let's see. That's turned off. That's turned off. That's turned off. That apparently is turned on. I do believe the stream is live. So I think we're ready to get into it. So let's do just that then. Let's get into it. Okay, hello, Shadowcat back. Yes, it's been a minute. I had to take a week off there. I'm sorry. For a multitude of reasons. I'm not sorry because you had nothing to watch. I'm sure you had something to watch. I'm sorry because I didn't get to do this for a week, and I like doing this. So, I was kind of jonesing. That being said, though, I did get some work done on it kind of behind the scenes. I didn't do anything without you, I promise. But I've got some good stuff for you. And I see there's already people in the chat. JP is here. Good to see you, JP. Needs more coffee. I've never touched this stuff. I do not drink coffee. I'm not a coffee person. I'm not even really a tea person. I get up in the morning, I have breakfast. That's my wake-up thing, okay? A lot of people say do not talk to me before coffee. I say do not talk to me until I've had something to eat, okay? If you do, you're asking for trouble. I see Blizz is also in the chat. Blizz says, do I has cheeseburger? I do not, but I did have hot dogs, so close enough. You know, that's going to work for us. All right. I don't want to waste too much time, though, because I want to get started. Oh, I've got something so good for you. I have something so good. So one of the things that I was struggling with, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull everything up while we're doing this, but one of the things I've been struggling with is Psykers. They're really, really powerful. Like, how powerful are Psykers really? Well, let me give you an example of how powerful Psykers are and why they are so incredibly dangerous. There was a hive city, and I do not remember the name of the hive city. I'm not good with names, okay? I'm good with mechanics and, you know, things that happened, but names and dates, not good. Like, I can pretty much dictate to you the entire World War II. However, if you ask me when and where a particular battle happened, I have no idea. That being said, you know, I'm good at what I do. I'm bad at the things that I'm bad at. Anyway, there was a story of a Psyker who was in a hive city. Now, if you don't know what a hive city is, I don't think I've really talked about them, but hive cities are this idea that you have the entire population of a planet condensed into a single city, usually because the planet is otherwise uninhabitable. And so everybody has to be inside of this essentially like pressure-contained vessel. The inside of the hive city is usually bad, and the outside of the hive city is bad. The only real determining factor is that the hive city is livable. Although, that's debatable, depending on the hive cities. Anyway, point is, one of the people that was born in the hive city was a Psyker, and not even a particularly strong Psyker either. They were a strong enough Psyker that if the Inquisition had caught them, they would have probably been sent to the the Golden Throne on Terra, you know, loaded onto the black ships. Maybe they would have even been at the lower levels of a sanctioned Psyker, which, given as I understand that the person was of noble birth, sanctioned Psyker was probably more likely. However, because the parents didn't want to lose their child, you know, as parents want to do, they said nothing. And what happened was, they weren't a strong enough Psyker for them to simply open up a gateway to the Immaterium and allow demons in. But they were a strong enough Psyker that they could be influenced by demons in the warp. And what happened was, Psykers do tend to have things that they're good at, but they all kind of have access to all abilities. Some are just better at some things than others, and this one happened to be a really, really good telepath. And what happened was that they started to influence people around them. You know, people were nicer to them, people were kinder to them, people were more generous to them because they were influencing people to just naturally follow them. Subconsciously, but they were doing it. And once a demon possession got involved, that grew. They weren't just drawing people to them, they were calling people to them. And what they were doing is, with the demon influence from the Immaterium, they were actually creating a demonic cult, with the Psyker at the center of this cult of personality. This went on until somebody noticed, but by the time somebody noticed, it was way too late. The situation was far out of control now. There was way too many of them. There was demonic infiltration. There were warp storms, everything else. By the time the Inquisition found out what was going on, the entire Hive City was essentially just one massive cult, and the only answer left at this point was Exterminatus. They basically had to raise the entire city from orbit, because there's nothing else you can do. I mean, even if they killed the Psyker at this point, the demonic influence was so well entrenched that the people themselves in the cult were keeping it going. Psykers are massively powerful. And one of the things that I was not reflecting in the game is just how powerful Psykers were. There are also cases, and who was it? Who was it? It was one of the more powerful Psykers. I want to say it was the Primarch of the Thousand Suns, but I'm not sure about that. I think the name was Magnus. But again, I'm bad with names, so I'm not positive. Let me look this up real quick, because it should be simple. Magnus? No, it's not Magnus. I'm gonna go with Magnus, and somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do believe that it was Magnus who, while they were in orbit of a planet, used their psychic abilities to destroy the planet. Now, you got to keep in mind, this Primarch, I do believe it's Magnus. I think it's Magnus the Red. I don't know, I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. This Primarch was like top tier. I mean, we are talking like somewhere in the purple area. Hold on, let me get back to my spreadsheet. Somewhere in this purple area of Psykers already. And the reason why I think it's Thousand Suns is because they were the heretic cult that kind of specialized in psychic abilities. They were the followers of Zeech, and their entire thing was delving the depths of psychic abilities to uncover all of the mysteries of the multiverse. I mean, his power was so great that, like, he channeled so much power through him, he disappeared. And then he re-manifested himself. So, his power is, like, off the scale. But I needed something to really do that, because when we were doing our psychic powers here, we did things like, we can project energy, which is great. You can shoot a ray of energy, a line of energy, a cone, and if you're like a level 20 Psyker, you can cast a ray that does D12's worth of damage. That's like super scary, isn't it? That's super scary, except it's kind of not. Starjammer, weapons. Yeah, here we go. Here's a level 17 sword. This is a Starfire sword, and it does 4d12 damage. It's a sword. Anybody can use it. How about something else? Here we go. A shock truncheon. So basically, it's just a cattle prod. It does 1d12 electrical damage at level 8. Fang Blade. It's a really sharp vibrating knife. It does 1d12 at level 7. How about some ranged weapons? Gyrojet Pistol. So these fire rockets. This is a level 15 gun that does 3d12. A Cestus Pistols, level 6, it does 1d12 piercing damage. The point is, d12s are not uncommon. They do show up around level 5, 6, 7, but they're not uncommon, and you're level 12 Psyker. And you're doing d12 rays? Now, mind you, the number of d12s you get to throw is tied to your sensitivity. So, if you are somewhere in the area of a sanctioned Psyker, which would be the Cyans, you're looking at 8d12 to 10d12. There is no gun that really matches that. However, it does mean that technically if you are at least a level 20 Pi, you can do as much damage with your mind as a level 6 gun. It doesn't sound like much, but still, you can do as much damage as a gun with your mind. However, even if we went full alpha class and said that your full alpha can roll 16 d12s on a ray, so let's say that you want to point your finger and shoot a jet of fire at somebody. Let's get my calculator out here. 16 times d12s means that it caps out at 192 damage. That's a lot of damage just for pointing your finger at somebody. And by the way, since you can do this a number of times per day equal to your sensitivity times your level, that is 16 times 20. 16 times 20 is 320 uses per day. If I multiply that by 192, that comes out to, and sit down for this one, 61,440 damage that your Psyker is capable of outputting in a day, just in terms of like pure fire. But you know what the problem with this is? Because there is a problem with it. The problem comes in that 61.4 K damage is a lot, but 61.4 K damage is not going to blow up a planet. Okay? 61,000 damage isn't generally going to destroy most large buildings, much less a planet. But we know for a fact canonically that anybody in this purple area is capable of doing just that. We also have cases of, like I said, the Psyker who was able to mind control, or at least mind influence, an entire hive city, that is billions of people. I'm talking, and we haven't gotten to this yet, but we need to still do, right here, telepathy, buffing, debuffing, divination. Under telepathy, we need mind control. However, as we've seen before, the number of targets that you're allowed to get, yeah, it's up to your sensitivity within a certain range. That means that even an alpha can only mind control 16 people at once. Now, in combat, if you can mind control 16 people, that's probably literally everyone on the other side. So we need to do something better. So before we get into the telepathy, buffing, debuffing, and divination, I want to talk about range and scale, and for that, we're going to need this. Right here. I sat down for a few hours and just started throwing numbers at this system, and it turns out the easiest solution was the better one. What we need is to be able to control things at a variety of levels, which means that we're going to need to add even more psychic powers. But this is going to be really interesting. So the first level we have here is combat. Now, combat is literally everything that we've done already. So, energy releases, combat maneuvers, healing restoration, all of this stuff is combat. And all of that is going to take exactly one use of your daily allotment. So if you are just your bog-typical pie-level Psyker, you can do something once per day at level 1, and you'll gain 1 use per day as you level up. If you are an alpha, because everything up here is 16, you can do 16 uses per day at level 1, and you gain another 16 every time you level up. Now that's going to be important. So, that's combat. But now we're going to extend our reach to the local area. Now, when I say local, I'm talking about miles. Specifically, the system that I have worked out, your sensitivity is going to determine your range, with your range being a 1 mile radius per sensitivity, meaning that your pi level Psyker can only reach out 1 mile in any direction, and your alpha level can reach out 16 miles in any direction. And I'm calling this local because, well, 16 miles is the size of a small town. When you think of a town, you don't usually think of it in terms of a radius. You usually think of it in terms of a diameter or a width, height, whatever. A 16-mile radius is 32 feet or 32 miles across. I think that is larger than the city that I grew up in. So, local. Now, of course, when we're doing this, everything is going to have a lessening effect the further down we go. So if you can mind control people directly in the combat level, the local area would be something more akin to Quest or Gios, which, if you're not as familiar with high-level magic, let me just pull that up. No. There. Alright, so, Gios and Quest. The idea here is very simple. It's not direct mind control, like you would get with Dominate Person, but it's like the next best thing. So the spell functions similar to Lesser Gios, except that it affects any hit dice or creature, blah 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 blah. So we'll just go down to Lesser Gios. It places a magical command on a creature to carry out some service or to refrain from some action or course of activity as desired by you. It must have 7 or fewer hit dice, be able to understand you. While it cannot compel a creature to kill itself or perform acts that would result in certain death, it can cause almost any other course of activity. So, what we're talking about here is like at the local or at the combat level, you could take direct control of somebody. At the local level, you could just like compel an entire town to take a specific action. Like you could simply command an entire town to walk that way. And guess what? Everyone, by and large, in the town would get a will save to try and not. However, they're pretty much going to start walking that way in mass. So that's what I'm looking at for the local level. On the next one, the regional level, we are talking anything from like a state or province or territory to like that kind of thing. So if combat is like a block, then local would be Chicago, and then regional would be anywhere from like Illinois to the Midwest. Okay? So we're talking like millions of people. However, if combat is mind control and local is Gios quest that people must follow, regional would be suggestion. So we already saw that. Then we have suggestion. So this spell, you influence the actions of the target creature by suggesting a course of activity limited to a sentence or two. It must be worded in such a manner as to make it sound reasonable. Asking creature to do something obviously harmful automatically negates. The suggested course of activity can continue for the entire duration. If it can be completed in a shorter time, the spell ends when they finish what they were asked to do. So it's essentially Gios or quest, but shorter and simpler. So you'd be able to do this to like an entire region. Then we have continental level. It is exactly what it sounds. We're talking about anything from a quarter to a half of the globe. Now, if combat is mind control, local is Gios or quest, regional is suggestion, continental is essentially just like detect person. You're not going to really be able to tell them what to do, but you could at least just know how many people are on this part of the planet. And then when we get to the planetary area, you can't even really detect how many people are on the planet, but that's okay because you can do other things. So you get the idea. We're going to have scales, and as it scales with size, it's going to shrink in effect. Kinda. We'll get to the exceptions. Alright, so JP says we should all play Psykers. You will get the chance. The entire point of this is, the reason why we have this chart here, is because everybody will get to roll to see what they get. For example, if you have a dice roller and you want to do this right now, if you're on, say, Roll20, or you've got a dice roller on your phone, or you actually happen to have a 1000s die, they do make them, you can roll this right now. The number that you roll tells you where you fall from 1 to 1000. And so if you want to find out, where you could potentially sit, go for it. Not only did I determine, the rolls and everything, I even had the percentages over here. 1% of people should fall into the, basically insane psyker category. Just ever so slightly more fall into the powerful sanctioned psychers. 2.4% would fall into the sanctioned psychers area. 7.5% would be in the green. Now the green are kind of like psychers, but generally speaking they tend to go under the radar. Although in this case, these are psychers who would probably be identified and shoved onto the black ships, to be honest. Yellow is the vast majority, obviously, because the vast majority of people are either going to have no psychic ability, which is why it's 137 to 972, or they will have very, very slight psychic ability. These are people who are just lucky, or likable, or charismatic. People who just, things tend to go their way for no apparent reason. So that's the pies. Everybody up here, everyone in this green area, these are the people whom strange things happen when you're around them. Like, to give you an example, let's say that you, it's modern day. You have a phone. I'm going to assume that most people watching this have a phone. Imagine if you knew a person where every time you got near them, you lost all of your service. You can't explain it. You have no idea why, but you've tested it. Every single time you go out with your friend, your phone stops working. Now, you've tested it with other things. I mean, the television works, all right? The internet still works, but your phone, the wireless signal, is just gone. That's this kind of green category. Weird things happen around them. They don't control it. They might not even be aware of it. However, they're dangerous because they affect the world around them. I mean, in the case of, say, a Kappa here, remember what we were talking about local, 7 mile or 1 mile per sensitivity? A Kappa could theoretically influence a 7-mile radius. That's dangerous. Especially if they have no idea what they're doing or how they're doing it. So yeah, if you want to see what kind of Psyker you could be, roll a D1000, see where you line up. So when we do start this module, everybody will get to roll on this as part of making their character. It'll pretty much be the first thing they roll after they pick their race. Because if you're a Psyker of any note, it might change how you want to make your character. Anyway. Let's see. He doesn't like this idea. I made this idea. I love this idea. Is there anything that would be the opposite of a Psyker? An anti-Psyker, someone who can negate or absorb their energies. There is. And we'll go ahead and we'll talk about that right now. See, everything we've been talking about so far has basically been pi through alpha. Something that we have completely missed and ignored has been sigma through omega. The reason why is because these are the opposites. These are people who don't just have no real psychic presence, but they are the anti-Psykers. So what happens here is these people are kind of like a sink. So if all of your other Psykers are like a faucet, okay, they are just pouring water, pouring power from the immaterium into the universe, the anti-Psykers here are the opposite. That energy is going to flow from the Psykers to these guys, where they literally sink it. It flows into their body and it's gone. Now, this is, of course, a range. And if we go to here, no, I went too far down. I want to go to, yeah, here we go. The first thing that I want to do is I want to look at sigma through psi. Okay, so this grade of the assignment, which actually includes psi through sigma, represents individuals who are oblivious to the fluctuations of the warp and who are immune to psychic probing by a telepath. The range of this ability varies, with the highest class at sigma grade being deemed blunt or resistant to some psychic effects, and the lowest grade being extremely resistant to the effects of psychic power, yet still capable of being affected by an extreme degree of psychic strength. And then you have Omega, which is the same thing, except it is perfect. It says right here, they are anti-psychers usually referred to as the untouchables or blanks. The reason why they are called the untouchables is that, let's say you were to have even an alpha class psyker. That psyker, like, let's take our original psyker who is shooting a beam of fire, okay? Alpha class psyker fires a ray of fire at an omega. Anybody could put their hands up and try to stop the fire. Like, a normal person could, like, hold their hands up and try to block the fire, and they would be incinerated for it. Because you just can't stop the fire. Sigmas, however, when they hold their hand up to stop a fire, or a beam of fire shooting at them, they're probably still going to be incinerated by it. However, they're not going to be as hurt. And it goes down to the point where when you get to Psi, you can have, say, an alpha class fire at them. They can hold their hands up because they might not even realize that they are one of these anti-psychers, but they could hold their hands up, block the fire, and when the psyker stops the energy flow, maybe they only have, like, minor burns on their hands. So these people have the ability to just resist psychic energy. Now, there are ways around this, obviously. If the alpha class psyker was to lift up, I don't know, a building and throw it at them, well, they can resist psychic powers, but they can't resist a building. However, anything that is psychic related that touches them is almost entirely negated until you get to Omega. Omegas simply get to resist everything. So anything that you fire that is psychic in nature at an Omega, it's just gone. And we're going to have to pay some special attention to these guys when we get to them. Right now, I'm just working on the actual Psykers. But these guys... You asked, can the Sync somehow have a leech ability? Drain the Psyker, collect and redirect their powers. No, they cannot collect and redirect their powers. However, they can do something much, much worse than that. Because Psykers are these bright, brilliant beacons of light in the immaterium. Anti-Psykers are pits of absolute blackest despair. The reason why these Sisters of Silence are the ones who have to go around and collect Psykers is because they're the only ones immune to it. But they also have a secondary effect. See, the Sisters of Silence go from planet to planet collecting Psykers that are identified. Now, of course, if one of these Psykers tries to, say, telekinetically shove them, or mind control them, or even fire a bolt of lightning, the Sisters of Silence can literally shrug it off. However, every single Psyker, in the presence of a blank, which is to say, one of these Omegas, basically goes insane. Think of, like, the most torturous thing you can imagine. Think of the most torturous sound, the most torturous feeling, the most torturous taste and smell, the worst, most violent, wicked, disgusting thoughts you can imagine. And then imagine that all of this is inflicted upon you when somebody walks by you. They don't look at you, they don't say anything to you, they don't even acknowledge you, but simply being in their presence is sheer, unadulterated, unmitigated torture. And that's what every single Psyker feels when they are around an Omega. not only can they not do anything to these people, they can't even tolerate the existence of these people, and they can do nothing about it. They don't need to drain the power out of a Psyker, because a Psyker will find themselves essentially unable to do anything in the presence of an Omega. They can't concentrate. So we're going to get to those, and they're going to need their own little section because they don't have powers as such. They just simply kind of are the power by their very existence. Now, if somebody somehow managed to roll an Omega in the game, and somebody else happened to roll a Psyker, I'm not sure how I would handle that, because number one, Omegas cannot turn off what they are. So that is active all of the time. And I don't know how two characters who are literally, essentially toxic to each other would survive in the same party. I don't know yet. It's one of those things where, like, I don't have a plan for it, but I'm also not going to preclude the chance. Everybody has to roll on the table. What happens after the die is rolled, that's part of the game. JP says, an Omega encounter suit. To the best of my knowledge, it doesn't exist. There's only one thing that I know of. And I don't believe... I do not believe that it actually suppresses anything about it. Anti-Psykers, anti-Psykers, anti-Psykers... Anti-Psyker weaponry, here we go. Yes, the Calexis Assassins. So, number one, Omegas are incredibly rare. Like, there are the Sisters of Silence, and the only reason why there are enough Omega-class Psykers to make the Sisters of Silence is because only like 1 in a billion people ever is an Omega. And it's only because there are so very many billions of humans in the 40k universe that they can gather enough together. Most of them are destroyed, usually by people around them, because here's the interesting thing. Psykers find Omegas absolutely intolerable. As in, they will drive a Psyker to insanity. But normal people don't like Omegas either. Think about this. Have you ever come across a person that just made the hair on the back of your neck stand up? I think we've all come across a person like that. We've all known somebody who just felt off, wrong, dangerous, evil. We've all come across somebody that is just, they immediately get our back up. That person could have been a Sigma. Okay? Because every person has a presence in the warp. We call that basically a soul. So everyone who has a soul has a presence in the warp. We are all part of it. That's actually what all the chaos gods and demons are. The reason why we have Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch is because these chaos gods are reflections of ourselves. It is actually theorized, that humanity gave birth to Khorne the same way the Eldar gave birth to Slaanesh. Because Khorne is all about bloodshed, war, conquest, butchery, all of these things that humanity is exceedingly good at doing. And not only do we do it, we revel in it. Every time we go to war, we feed Khorne. Every time we play sports, we feed Khorne. Every time you play a match of Call of Duty, you feed Khorne. We are exceptionally good at doing that. And every person, even if they are a rogue, they have zero psychic ability and psychic potential, they still exist in the Immaterium and they still feed Khorne. The side effect of that is that once you get into this area, these are people who have a negative presence in the warp. And as such, even normal people find these people to be unsettling. Now, the reaction you get to these people depends on how far down you go. For Sigmas, maybe you just don't like that person. You don't know why. They haven't done anything to you. In fact, they haven't even said anything to you. You don't even know what their name is. But you don't like that guy. Okay, whatever. Life goes on. Tau? Okay, that's one of those guys that gets your back up, okay? It's like, I'm watching that guy. I don't know what it is about him. That is a bad person, okay? I bet they like kick dogs or something. Alright? Upsilon? You get to Upsilon and it's like, I'm pretty sure that guy is like a career criminal. He's probably a murderer. Maybe he even eats people. Alright? These are people that are essentially going to be just automatically outcast from society. But what happens once you get down to Omega? The reason why we do not find very many Omegas, and why the Sisters of Silence are so incredibly rare, as are the Calixis Assassins, is because when an Omega is born, they are usually killed. When an Omega person is born, people will say there is something wrong with that baby. Kill the baby. And guess what? They'll do it. They will hack that baby to pieces. Because it is just evil. It's possessed. It's demonic. Even if that doesn't happen, any kind of Omega is going to be shunned from society, exiled from everything. They're going to be abandoned by their parents. They're going to be abandoned by their community. They'll have to forage on their own and figure stuff out. Once they get, old enough, maybe they'll be sought out by whatever law enforcement. They'll be, profiled and attacked and everything else. They have to basically survive every single hurdle on their own from the time they are born to the time they are found by, say, a black ship or an inquisitor. And only then do they even get the chance to join, say, either the Sisters of Silence or to be recruited into the Officio Assassinorum. So, Omegas, super rare. For those that do get inducted into the Officio Assassinorum, you have the Calixis Temple. Now, the Officio Assassinorum has many different assassins, and I, personally, as an assassin player, love every single one of them. My personal favorite are the Vindicators. They are essentially snipers. But since this is 40k and everything is already turned up to 11, picture a sniper that can lay in waiting for years. There's a story about a Vindicator assassin who spent so long just waiting for a chance to assassinate this High Lord, that birds nested on him, and he got the chance to watch them build the nest and lay eggs and raise their entire family of chicks, and watch those chicks leave the nest before he got the chance to take his shot. That is months to years of waiting. They are seriously hardcore, and snipers are already hardcore to begin with. But yeah, I love all of them. But we're talking about the Calexis Temple here, and the Calexis Temple is because these guys hunt Psykers. So the assassins of the temple are chosen because of their, or not because of their innate savagery, cunning, or combat skills. First and foremost, they are chosen because they are born with an extremely rare genetic mutation called the blank gene, which means they have 0 presence in the warp. They are a black hole. Okay? They have 0 soul. Even normal humans find the psychic presence of a null extremely disturbing, but the effect is more pronounced on Psykers, who find pariahs genuinely terrifying, as though staring into a hole in the universe when they use their witch sight. So, here's the thing about the Calexis assassins. Obviously, they're already blanks, and there's one of them right now. The first thing that they get is the Animus Spectrum helmet, which is this thing. It looks like a skull, and it has a giant cannon on it. And they can use this cannon to basically channel their null abilities. It's essentially like being able to fire antimatter at a Psyker. So not only can the Psyker not use their abilities on a Calexis assassin, but they can just kind of disintegrate any Psyker where they stand. They use Psych Out grenades. They wear a Sin Skin body glove. It incorporates a nodal layer called Ethereum. The strange technology shifts the wearer out of phase with reality, making them appear ghost-like and insubstantial. When activated, they become a ghostly retinal afterimage, flickering toward the foe as though projected upon a faulty pictorial. When required, they can simply vanish altogether, prowling through the midst of the enemy and reappearing only when doing so to reap the greatest harvest of terror. This, combined with the Calexis assassin's innate anti-psychic abilities, means that psychic attacks pass right through them, as if they were invisible. Another important is the Force Matrix, with numerous psychic conduits that run with it. It is made out of material that is often used in force weapons. When Psykers tap into the warp, they're not always efficient in using all that energy they can absorb. Much of the excess energy is simply left to dissipate into the surrounding space. The Force Matrix acts as a conductor, absorbing this excess warp energy and providing the Calexis assassin, who is unable to tap directly into the warp, with a source of energy to enhance their abilities. So this is the gear that they're given. Nothing in this suppresses what they are. And this is like the only thing that blanks do. The other blanks would be the Sisters of Silence, and they wear power armor. Which power armor also does not suppress psychic ability. So, no. There's really nothing that's going to dampen that. And that's... So if we had a Psyker and a blank on the same team, I don't know how we handle that. Somebody's probably going to have a bad time. I need a drink real quick. Okay, better. PC Unicorn's in the chat. Good to see you. PC Unicorn says, so the sniper from Metal Gear, I assume that's in reference to the Vindicare Assassins, and I didn't play Metal Gear, so I'm not sure what sniper you're talking about. I just don't know. But okay, we'll have to get into this eventually. So those are the changes that I've made to the Psykers. Now we have different levels. We're going to have to finish up the combat level before we can move on to the others. But I had to go over the changes because it's going to kind of significantly change how Psykers work. It also occurs to me that I might need to redo this whole, like, resistance thing. Because technically, alphas don't really have resistance. I don't know. We got to work on that because there is going to be a challenge system for this. I believe it was JP that asked above when I was talking about the local scale. Where was it? I don't even remember. No. I might have missed it. With psychic powers, everybody will get a will save against them. Like, technically speaking, even if we come down to the energy release, you can get a reflex save, I suppose, if you wanted to try and dodge it. Or, I think you should get a will save if you wanted to simply resist it. Which is what I was originally thinking of up here. The problem that I see is when it comes to resisting, I do think that the resistance should be whatever is rolled. So, if you're a Pi grade Psyker, and even if you're at like level 20, if your level 20 Pi decides that they're going to fire a bolt of lightning at you, I think it's not entirely unreasonable to allow your character to make a will save to simply resist it. And since your will save against a level 20 Pi is going to just be 1d12, I think that your character at level 20 should be able to easily just brush it away. So, I mean, maybe your Pi Psyker is having a temper tantrum and just decides to fire a bolt of lightning at one of the other party members, and the other party member literally just kind of glances over their shoulder and makes a will save. Well, they're going to roll, or they have to roll higher than a 12 at max. And so they roll higher than a 12, and the lightning just kind of courses over them and doesn't hurt them at all. We are talking about psychic powers here. That seems like that's how that should work. That also means, though, that if you're level 20 Alpha Psyker, so we're talking like 16 D12s, I calculated that to be 192 max, decide that they're just going to fire a bolt of lightning that is going to just absolutely annihilate whatever's at the point of impact. Okay. Yes, technically you get a will save to try and just resist it. I don't see that happening, though. Maybe go for the reflex save. It might save you. And I do like the idea of having it being one or the other. Like, either way, it'll be a DC of whatever was rolled. But, your choice. Reflex for half or will for none. Do you dodge or stand your ground? I think it's good. I like that idea. Okay, though. Alright, so looks like we already got started on buffing and debuffing. last time. JP says, just transplant the hand of an Omega onto an Alpha. Never mind, they probably just implode. Yeah, you're basically dividing by 0. PC Unicorn says, there's a sniper in one of the Metal Gears from the PlayStation 2. Hard boss battle that can be chased by either waiting 1 week or setting the clock a week ahead, at which point the sniper dies of old age. Actually, I think I heard about that. Was his name The End? Or something like that? There's a YouTube channel called Tulok the Barbarian. He did a rather long-running series called Building Character, where he made a lot of famous characters in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And that was the last character he did. I never played the game, but I did watch that episode. Forgot about that. Okay. So, buffing and debuffing. The last time we were here, we did Iron Arm, which is one of the powers in here. Where was it? Telekinesis, pyromancy, divination, biomancy. Right. So Smite is bio-lightning from their fingertips. We covered that under energy release. Iron Arm, transmuting flesh into metal, it gives natural armor, which is what we did. So you get to roll your psychic power. You get to grant natural armor equal to the sensitivity to a number of targets equal to the sensitivity in range for a number of rounds equal to your roll. So if you're a Pi, you can only grant 1 or +1 armor to +1 people. If you are an Alpha, you can grant somebody 16 armor up to 16 people for a number of rounds equal to whatever it is that you rolled. Okay, so we've got that. Now we need to get into some of these other ones. Enfeeble. So, according to this, Enfeeble, tendrils of warp energy lash over their victims and sap vitality from their bodies. So, I think we kind of already covered this under Leech. Kinda. Well, Leech allows you to do damage and heal yourself, so we don't want to do that. And JP says, Iron Arm sounds like the Mafia name for Darwin in the Star Trek campaign. Well, except it doesn't look like an iron arm. But, you know, maybe. Should we just rename his character then? We can go in and call him Full Metal Murphy. Full Metal Murphy, anybody? Just me? Okay, fine. We'll leave that one go. I mean, I guess he doesn't have an artificial leg yet. Okay, so we want to sack. We want to sap people. Sapping vitality from their bodies. Sapping vitality means that we would essentially be making them tired. That's called fatigue. Now, we already have the ability to cleanse fatigue up here. We could inflict it on a number of people. So, enfeeble. Now, that's what that says. There is also an enfeeble spell. Yeah, Ray of Enfeeblement. This is a classic when it comes to tabletop gaming. And it's the only one here. So, Ray of Enfeeblement. So, coruscating ray springs from your hand. You must succeed a ranged touch attack to strike the target. You know, you have to aim. The subject takes a penalty to their strength equal to 1d6 plus 1 per 2 caster levels. The subject strength score cannot drop below 1. A successful fortitude save reduces the penalty by half. The penalty does not stack with itself. I am conflicted here. So it says vitality. That could be interpreted as inflicting fatigue on them. Alternately, vitality would also technically be your constitution score. And Ray of Enfeeblement in Pathfinder targets your strength score. I do wonder if perhaps we could target any one of the physical stat scores, the hard stats. So what if it was you could target a number of people equal to your sensitivity, and you could lower their stats, one of their stats of your choosing, strength, dexterity, or constitution, by a number equal to your sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to the roll. This would give you some flexibility. It's going to be close, of course. But if there was somebody who had like a great big sword, maybe you target them and you sap their strength. If somebody had a gun, maybe you target them and sap their dexterity. Maybe if they're like in power armor or something, you target them and you sap their constitution. Either way, I kind of think I like that idea. So choose strength, dexterity, or constitution. Roll psychic power. Deal damage equal to sensitivity to that stat for a number of rounds equal to roll. And I like that. So again, if you are a Pi level Psyker, you can't really do much. You'll be able to make them a little bit weaker. If you are an Alpha class Psyker, you can literally remove 16 strength from somebody. Which, by the way, if you remove 16 strength from somebody, they basically collapse under the weight of their own gear. Let's see. Let's go to Star Jammer, ability scores. No, that's not it. Alright, never mind. We'll go to Pathfinder then. So, ability scores. Strength. Since you can't drop anything or anyone below 1, a strength score of 1 is equivalent to a bat or a toad. Morbidly weak, has significant trouble lifting their own limbs. Yeah, basically you just rip the strength right out of them for a number of rounds equal to your roll, which, by the way, since your roll is going to be 16 d4s probably, I mean, they're going to be out for a while. You rip the strength out of them, you walk over, and while they're laying there helpless, you coup de grace. Again, Psykers are terrifying. The one thing that I did not add in here is the number of targets. However, given how incredibly devastating this has the potential to be, I'm inclined to leave it as being single target. I may change my mind on that later. Don't count on it, though. So what's next? Next is endurance. So reaching the metabolic essence of their allies, the Biomancer knits together bones, heals flesh, and banishes fatigue so that they can carry on the fight. I mean, I do believe that we can just do that. I mean, we already have the feat that is endurance. I believe that I even have it in Starjammer. Do we have it? I think we have it. Feats. No endurance? Okay, no endurance then. That's okay. We have it in Pathfinder. Feats. Endurance. So, let's see. With endurance, you get a +4 to the following checks and saves. Swim, Constitution, while running, Constitution, Forced March, Constitution to hold your breath, Constitution to avoid non-lethal damage from starvation or thirst, Fortitude to resist non-lethal damage from hot and cold, and Fortitude to resist damage from suffocation. You may also sleep in light or medium armor without becoming fatigued. That is very much slept on. Like, the idea that you do not have to sleep in your armor, or you don't have to sleep out of your armor, because you have endurance. So if you get ambushed in the middle of the night, guess what? Whoever has endurance can have their armor on. Everybody else, you fight naked. So I think that's what we're going to do. That's going to be endurance, and it's literally going to be that. Close, and I'm going to say grant the feat endurance. Well, hold on a second. Roll psychic power. Grant the feat endurance to one target per sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to roll. Perfect. And so that's super easy. This says it also knits together bones and heals flesh, but we already have the healing, so I don't need to worry about that. We're just focusing on the banish fatigue part. Now, this isn't necessarily going to banish fatigue, although we could add that. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to because we already have cleanse up here, and cleanse can already remove fatigue. So we don't need to double up on that. This is just going to grant the endurance feat. So what do we have? Life Leech, we already did. Warp Speed. The powers of the Immaterial flow into the Psyker, heightening their speed and supernatural skills. They are a blur among their enemies. Well, I gotta tell you, that sounds like haste. So let's see if we have that in Starfinder. Maybe Technomancer? Yes. So how does it work here? So lasts for 1 round per level, not worried about that. The target creature moves and acts more quickly than normal. The XP has several effects. When making a full attack, the hasted creature can also take a separate move action in order to move. So, yeah, if you have to use a full attack action, you can move. The movement can occur before, after, or between attacks from the full attack. All movement must occur at the same time. All hasted creatures' modes of movement, including base, burrow, climb, fly, and swim, are increased by 30 feet to a maximum of twice their normal speed using that form of movement. This increase counts as an enhancement bonus and it affects the creature's jumping distance as normal for increased speed. Multiple haste do not stack. Sounds pretty easy. So that is warp speed. No, not that warp speed. So roll psychic power, grant haste to one target per sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to roll. And if we're going to go ahead and do warp speed, then surely we can also do slow. Right? If I just... Yep, there it is. Slow. Affected creature moves and attacks drastically slowed. Creatures affected by the spell are staggered and can take only a single move action or standard action each turn, but not both. They cannot take full action. A slowed creature moves at half its normal speed. Round down. Multiple slow effects do not stack. That's going to be close. Roll psychic power. Inflict slow on one target per sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to roll. All right, what else we got? Hemorrhage. Focusing their mutant mind, they reach forth and set fire within their victim's flesh. Within moments, the unfortunate foe's blood begins to boil in its own veins, tearing them asunder as it bursts from every pore. Well, I do think that we can do that, and I think we can do more than that. So we already have Cleanse. And Cleanse will allow us to just... We can cure any of this stuff, but we should also be able to inflict it. Okay, so... I do believe that I can copy this directly. I think I can do it. So I'm just going to call this inflict. And I'm actually going to copy that too. I'll have to change the wording a little bit, but inflict. So we're not going to be suppressing anything. We're going to be inflict. The effect of one condition on a number of targets up to your sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to your roll. So this is going to be the new condition and old condition. That way I don't have to go through and change everything around. So If you had nothing, you can get sleep, everything through deafened. However, you cannot simply inflict exhausted on somebody. They have to be fatigued first. The same thing goes with frightening them, or nauseating them, or panicking them. You have to have the preceding condition. So that is going to counter nicely with this. You can cure it from your own people, or you can inflict it on others. And so with that, bleeding is already a part of it. But now you can put them to sleep, you can blind them, you can set them on fire. The choice is yours, and you can do with it what you will. Okay, but that takes care of pretty much all the biomancy and a few other things that we added along the way. I'm not ready for divination yet. I can't do it. I'm not ready. So I'm going to put a box around this. There we go. We'll come up here. We can delete buffing and debuffing now. Let's move on to telepathy and telekinesis. So telepathy and telekinesis. We'll just copy this. And we'll get started. So telekinesis. The first thing we have is a sail. Using nothing but the power of their mind, the Psyker tears a boulder or rock from the ground and hurls it at a foe. Okay. And then we have Crush. By reaching out their arm and clenching their fist, they can entrap their foe in a choking and crushing massive psychic force. Grating their teeth, they continue to assault until flesh and armor and bone alike are ground into powder. I do wonder if this is just simply telekinesis. No, this one. Okay, so let's look at the actual spell telekinesis, and I think that there's even... Yeah, there's telekinesis in both of them. Let's go with Starfinder first, since that's what we're using as our base. Okay, so you move objects or creatures by concentrating on them. Depending on your desired effect, choose one from below. The spell can perform a variety of combat maneuvers, provide gentle sustained force, or exert a single short violent thrust. The first thing is combat maneuvers. So you can perform bull rush, disarm, grapple, including pin, or trip combat maneuvers. Resolve these attempts as normal, but use your caster level plus your key ability score. We already did that. And as a matter of fact, I think we even included more. However, it does include grapple in here, which means that when we were looking at these earlier, I was kind of on the fence about grapple. Apparently we can do it. And the range on this is long. 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. So, this whole 1 foot per sensitivity? Nope. It's going to be long. And if it's going to be long, I should probably make the rest of them long too, honestly. I mean, it seems kind of crazy, but it's already in Starfinder, so Obviously, they must have thought it was balanced enough, especially since the Star Jammer SRD, these are tournament rules. If it's allowed in tournament, then what can I do? Alright, sustained force. A sustained force moves an object no more than 25 pounds or 2 bulk per caster level up to 20 feet per round in any direction, including up and down. A creature can negate the effect of an object it holds with a successful will save or spell resistance. This version of the spell lasts for 1 round per caster level, but ends if you cease concentrating. It also ends if it's forced beyond the spell's range. You can manipulate the object as if it were with one hand. For example, a lever can be pulled, a key turned, button pushed, object rotated, so on, so long as the force required is within the weight limitation. You might even be able to untie simple knots, though a delicate activity usually requires a successful DC 15 intelligence check. Now, sustained force of no more than 25 pounds or 2 bulk per caster level. So we're talking about anywhere from 25 pounds at level 1, which, I mean, you couldn't even get it at level 1, but regardless, anywhere from 25 pounds to up to 500 pounds. Or 2 bulk to 40 bulk. That's pretty good, actually. I really can't complain about that one. That sounds good. Now, what about the Violent Thrust? The spell energy can be spent in a single round. You can hurl up to 15 objects or creatures that are within range, no 2 of which can be more than 10 feet apart, towards any target within 150 feet of the objects. You can hurl a total weight of up to 400 pounds or 40 bulk. You must make attack rolls, 1 per creature or object thrown, to hit the target with items using your base attack bonus plus your key ability score. All objects ranging from 1 damage per 25 pounds or 2 bulk for less dangerous objects, or 1d10 per 25 pounds or 2 bulk for extremely dangerous objects, such as weapons or bladed or spiked objects. Objects and creatures that miss land in a square adjacent to the target. So, none of these actually talk about doing damage directly. So I think we can make up for this. We already have up here energy release. And energy release is fire, cold, electric, disintegrating, or sonic. Disintegrating and acid. What if we did the same thing, but for physical damage? So, assail. The range on these, well, okay, it's already kind of listed. I'm just gonna... That's not what I wanted. Undo that. Copy. Paste. Okay. So we've got this back now. The only difference that I'm going to make here is this is going to be bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing. Did I spell that wrong? There we go. And so everything else can stay basically the same. We can keep the numbers the same. If something happens to have some kind of energy resistance, or they're wearing energy resistant armor, then you have this. It's under telekinesis, but it's essentially the same thing. All right, I think that's good. I think that's super easy, and we can work with that. I'm going to go ahead and put that up there. Stupid mouse. Stop it. There. Okay. So now that we got a sail done, what else do we have? Crush. What do we want to do for crush? I mean, crushing is essentially bludgeoning damage. And it does say here that a sail uses the power of their mind to tear a boulder or rock from the ground and hurl at their foe. Okay, let's change things a little bit. This is not going to be a sail. I'm just going to call this one Assault. Okay? And we'll do a more proper sail. The range will be long. The effect. So the effect is going to be... We got to roll dice for it, okay? It can't just be an effect that just happens. What are we rolling for then? It's going to be instantaneous, so we don't have to roll for duration. How do we want to do this? So it says that you rip a boulder or rock from the ground and hurl it at foes. That's great and all, okay? I like that. But what do you do if you're, say, indoors? Can you still assail something? Where do you get the rock from? We have to find a way to, like, say, rip a section of wall out and throw that at somebody. Or if there's no boulders because you're in a city, how do you throw a car at somebody? I know that we want to roll our psychic power, so we're going to start with that. So roll psychic power. I'm going to go ahead and say move or throw an object that weighs less than or equal to bulk, or less than equal to the roll in bulk, and 1 bulk equals 10 pounds. All right. If the object is secured, make a strength check using roll to remove it. Okay. That might not have sounded very clear, but I know what I'm trying to think of. So here's what I'm thinking. The idea behind a sail is that you can grab something and throw it. Fine. Great. I'm good with that. That means that if you're a Psyker and you want to throw something, first off, you have to roll for it. Now, if you're rolling, say, if you're a pie, you get to roll a d4. That means that at the most, you can lift something that weighs 40 pounds. Which, you know, is not small, but 40 pounds is not that much. So lift up to 40 pounds at level 1. That also means that your Alpha class Psyker at level 1 I just do the math here. 16 times 4. Why do I have to do 16 times 4? It's 64. What the hell am I doing? Okay, so your Alpha class Psyker will be able to lift 64 bulk. That would be 640 pounds with their mind. Since most cars I do believe weigh roughly a ton, they couldn't lift a car at level 1. However, it wouldn't take them too long. At level 2, that would go up to 1,280. At level 3, it would be 1,900 and some pounds. 1,920, I believe, which is pretty much car territory. It also means that if something was, say, secured to a wall, you could potentially rip it off the wall. I want rules. Downtime, no. Maybe combat? Let's see. Unattended objects. Drawer sheath weapon. Movement position. Diagonals. Dark vision. Incorporeal area. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted damaging objects. Actually, Sunder. Smashing an object. So we got materials, we've got hardnesses, hit points, break DCs, which is probably what I would be looking at. Break DCs. So let's say that you wanted to rip a door off. If it was just a regular wooden door, we're looking at a DC of, say, 18, if it's locked, to rip it off the hinges. So if you were a Psyker at level 1, you get to roll 16 D4s, and that is your psychic power to rip this door right off the hinges. Now that's going to go up over time, or rather up with material. But that's a door. I don't know about ripping wall material out. That would probably be double, I guess, the break DC. Or wait, no, here we go. Walls. Break DC. Perfect. So, concrete wall. Starts with a 45 DC. So, essentially, if you were a Psyker and you wanted to just rip a chunk out of the wall and throw it at somebody, you'd have to first roll your sensitivity, see how much you can actually grab, or rather, you'd make your psychic roll, and try to overcome that break DC. And if you succeed, then you can throw it. So I think that'll work, actually. And if it's not secured in place, then you can just lift it and throw it as normal. Let's see. And I also have a typo here. If the object is secured, make a strength check. Alright, so that's one. Next up is Crush. And that's a bit more complicated, because Crush is doing several things. Number one, it is holding them. And then number two, it deals crushing damage. So, I want to go back to spells. Because there is a spell for this, Crushing Hand. So Crushing Hand is one of those old school spells. This is one that's been around for basically ever. This spell functions as Interposing Hand, except it can grapple an opponent as Grasping Hand. Combat maneuver bonus and defense for the grapple checks used in its place. Yes. I don't care, though. Okay. Crushing Hand deals 2d6 plus 12 points of damage on each successful grapple check. The Crushing Hand can instead be directed to bull rush the target, such as Forceful Hand, using the same bonuses. Okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I am going to ignore the grapple part of that because we already have grappling covered up here. You can choose to do this already if you want to. So if you're already grappling somebody, rules as written, okay? Then you can go ahead and crush. So, Crush is going to be long because that's how far you can grapple people. So after grappling a target, roll psychic, well, no. Yeah. Power, deal damage, specifically deal crushing damage to grappled target. Okay, and that should be super simple. So you can use the other abilities to grapple them if you want. Once you've got them grappled, if they fail to escape on their next turn, then you can crush them. We do not need to complicate that. Okay, next. The Psyker punches a corridor through the roiling immaterium, allowing them to cross great distances in the blink of an eye. That is teleportation. Now, teleportation is going to be interesting because this is what's going to change depending on where we go with it. Because remember, we now have different scales. We have combat, local, regional, continental, and planetary. So, Gate of Infinity. The first that we can do would be something like Dimension Door. Hole portal, knock, blast door, digital doorway, dimension door. Here we go. Perfect. So, dimension door has a range of long, that's 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. You instantly transfer yourself from your current location to any other spot within range. You will always arrive exactly at the spot desired, whether by simply visualizing the area or by stating its direction. You can bring along objects as long as their weight does not exceed your maximum load. You can also bring along up to 4 additional willing or unconscious medium or smaller creatures, carrying your objects up to their maximum load. A large creature counts as 2 mediums, a huge counts as 2 large. All creatures must be in contact with one another. At least one of them must be in contact with you. Okay, I think this is going to be really super good. So, this is pretty much just going to be Dimension Door rules as written. So, Gate of Infinity. The range is going to be long. Dimension Door rules as written. And I do think that it's important that we go back and talk about scales. Objuration Mechanicum. Weapons jam, engines seize up as the Telekine uses their powers to wrench and twist the inner workings at the hearts of nearby machines. Do we already have that? We have Sunder. But we don't have Broken. Okay. This is actually going to be good. So, Objuration, Mechanicum. It's going to be long. And, let's see. Roll Psychic Power, and that's going to be a will save DC roll versus, or will save DC roll or inflict broken on weapon, armor, or vehicle. JP says, wrench and twist. Is that a feat? No, I'm pretty sure that's a mechanic class feature. Okay, so, that's Objuration Mechanicum. Next is Shockwave. The Psyker slams their palms together, the noise is magnified 100-fold, releasing a sonic shockwave of pure psychic force that snaps bones and knocks foes off their feet. We do not need to do that. The reason why is because that is a sonic attack, and we already have Sonic covered. It's up here. It does not necessarily break bones, and it does not knock people off of their feet, but we already have Sonic. Now, what we could do up here, is, we can have critical effects. So if it's fire, burning. If it's cold, what do cold weapons usually inflict? Weapons. Small arms. Cryo. They usually inflict staggered. Electric is stun. Disintegrating in acid. These usually just increase the DC to resist whatever you put into it. So this is going to be plus damage, and I'll work on that later. And then Sonic can be knocked down. Okay, so that should make everyone happy, right? Now, if you use a Sonic ability, if you make your attack roll, because it needs an attack roll, and if you crit, if it's Sonic, it also gets a knockdown. So that makes everyone happy, right? Are you happy? I don't care if you're happy. That's what we're doing. Alright, so no shockwave. Telekine Dome. Bullets bounce off of thin air and are deflected alarmingly towards enemy forces as the Psyker erects a barrier of shimmering psychic energy about themselves. There's a spell for that, and I don't know what it is. Okay, though. There's actually several spells that are very similar to that. But let's just do this. Let's do a search for Dome. So, Wall of Ice. Technically, Wall of Fire could probably do that. And that's it. Alright, how about this? Wall. So we've got Wall of Fire, Wall of Ice, we've got Illusory Wall. I love Illusory Wall. So much fun. Wall of Blindness and Deafness, Wall of Bone. Wall of Stone. Augmenting Wall. Wall of Ectoplasm. Wall of Force. Now that's probably what we want. So, a Wall of Force is an invisible wall of pure force. The wall cannot move and is not easily destroyed. A Wall of Force is immune to dispel magic, although a mage's dysfunction can still dispel it. A Wall of Force can be damaged by spells as normal, except for Disintegrate, which automatically destroys it. It can be damaged by weapons and supernatural abilities, but a Wall of Force has a hardness of 30 and a number of hit points equal to 20 plus the caster level. Contact with a Sphere of Annihilation or a Rod of Cancellation instantly destroys the Wall of Force. Breath weapons and spells cannot pass through a Wall of Force in either direction, although Dimension Door, Teleport, and similar effects can bypass the barrier. It blocks ethereal creatures as well as material ones, though ethereal creatures can usually circumvent the wall just by going around it. Though through material floors and ceilings. Gaze attacks can operate through a Wall of Force. So it can form the wall in a flat vertical plane. But that's all it says. It's just a flat vertical plane. I want a dome. However, you know what? That's actually fine. I can make this work. I can make this work. I mean, I can make it whatever shape I want it to be. So, here's what we're going to do. This is going to be called Telekine Dome. The range is special. So it's going to roll psychic power, create a dome with a radius of 10 feet per sensitivity for a number of rounds equal to roll C wall of force. So, we're going to use wall of force rules, but it's going to be in the shape of a dome. Now, since it is in the shape of a dome, that means that if you are a pi level psyker, you're only going to get a 20 or a 10-foot radius. It's enough to protect your friends briefly. Now, for Wall of Force, it says that it has a hardness of 30 and number of hit points equal to 20 per caster level. I suppose we'll make that 20 per sensitivity then. So if you're only a pi, your wall will only have 20 hit points. Now, with a hardness of 30, you probably don't need to worry about that too much. Unless you come across, say, another Psyker who's a lot stronger than you, which is probably gonna be all Psykers, let's be honest. So, they would have to do 50 points of damage to take it down in one shot. It's a lot of damage, but it could be done. Either way, it's fine. I like it. It's good. What else do we have? Because we're almost out of time. Can we finish up telekinesis? Vortex of Doom. The telekine opens a tear between the material realm and the howling destruction of the warp, unleashing raw psychic energies that utterly consume their foes. I know what I want to do. I'm just not sure if I want to do it. If you understand. Let's take a look at this. Okay, Gate. This is, if you're unfamiliar, a level 9 spell and one of the most fearsome spells in all of Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. Gate is obscenely overpowered, and if you ever played Baldur's Gate, obscenely dangerous. It opens up a gate to anywhere, which is not always a good thing. Casting a gate has two effects. Number one, it creates an interdimensional connection between your plane of existence and the plane you specify, allowing travel between those two planes in either direction. Secondly, you may then call a particular individual or kind of being through the gate. The gate itself is a circular hooper disc from 5 to 20 feet in diameter, your choice, oriented in the direction you desire. So if you're calling like a demon or something, aim it at an angle, like 45 degrees, so when they come through, they get flung through like a catapult. I mean, it's already going to be pissed at you because you summoned it. You may as well have fun. Let's see. It is a two-dimensional window looking into the plane you specified when casting the spell, or in this case, to the Immaterium. And anyone or anything that moves through it is shunted instantly to the other side. The gate does have a front and the back. Creatures moving from the front are transported. Creatures moving through from the back are not. So the first thing is planar travel. As a mode of planar travel, it functions much like the plane shift spell, except the gate opens precisely at the point you desire. Deities and other beings who rule can prevent a gate from opening in their presence, and personal demises if they desire. Travelers need not join hands, and you and anyone who chooses to step through the portal can be teleported. It cannot, however, be opened to another point on the same plane. It only goes between planes. don't really need to worry about calling creatures because we ain't doing that. What I was hoping for, though, is rules on opening it up to hostile planes. Like what would happen if you opened up a gate to the plane of water. I mean, there's going to be a lot of water coming through. Somebody want to do the math for me on this one? How much water could fit through how big did they say? A 20-foot diameter circle in, let's see, up to 1 round per level. Let's just call it 20 rounds, which is going to be 2 minutes. I guess you have to know the kind of pressure as well as that, and I can't really guess what that is. But either way, it would be a lot of water. Okay, so essentially, that would be water coming through, but we want to talk about sucking things in, I do believe. And JP says math needs to solve its own problems. Yeah, you tell math. Math needs to go to therapy. You know what? We actually did this already. Hold on. Where's our Eldar weapons? Eldar war gear. No, Eldar vehicles. Here we go. Because Eldar have vortex weapons. Distortion sight. Here we go. Distortion cannon. So distortion weapons create a singularity. It is our target a 5x5 area, make a gunnery check. On success, place a singularity on that space. On a fail of less than 5, place the singularity in one adjacent square. For additional 5 you fail, you move an additional square in the same direction. That creates a gravity well. When the singularity lands, create a gravity well 20 feet in additional increments until damage dice reaches 0, reducing by 1 for each increment. Creatures and vehicles caught in the gravity well take damage equal to the weapon damage and must make a reflex save or piloting save or be pulled 5 feet towards a singularity. The DC for the gravity well is equal to 15 plus the vehicle level. For every range increment after the first, reduce the DC by 5. Anything that touches the singularity is destroyed. See, we did this already. Also, it lasts for 2 rounds per vehicle level. We're going to take this and we're going to modify it. Now, where was I working? Here we go, Psykers. So, Vortex of Doom. This is going to be long. Alright. So, the first things that we have to check is make a gunnery check. We do not have to make a gunnery check. This is going to be a ranged touch attack. And I realize that Starfinder doesn't really do the whole like ranged touch attack thing, but either way. Everything else there can stay. So when a singularity lands, create a gravity well 20 feet. And additional increments until damage reaches 0, reducing by 1 for each increment. That will have to be rewritten. Because when it comes to the vehicle weapons, we're talking about vehicles that only have, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 on the largest side damage dice. For this, if I go with 20 feet per sensitivity, that could be absolutely just wildly too powerful. Or would that be appropriate? I'm not even sure. Like, let's think about this. If you were a sanctioned psyker, so that puts you in the iota category. That means that if we placed that singularity, it would be, because we got to count the 5-foot square where it actually appears. 8 times 20 is 160 feet radius. That's a lot. However, if it's long range starts at 400 feet, which means you could cast it way over there. So it wouldn't necessarily be that bad. And if you were an alpha class, 16 times 20 is 320 feet radius, which means that technically even an alpha class psyker at level 1 could cast it far enough away that the psyker themselves would not be affected by it. So yeah, this'll work. That's got to be radius. I didn't write that down on the other one. And additional increments. Until sensitivity reaches 0. Reducing by 1 for each increment. Creatures and vehicles caught in the gravity will take damage equal to whatever the singularity is. Must make a reflex or piloting save. That can stay the same. The DC for the gravity well is 15 plus the vehicle level. That needs to change. The DC for the gravity well is equal to the psychic roll. So again, if you're a pi, then the DC is going to be less than 12. If you're an alpha, the DC is pretty much just going to be impossible. However, that's what we expect out of an alpha psyker. They are supposed to be massively overpowered. For every range increment after the first, reduce the DC by 5. We can keep that. Anything that touches the singularity is destroyed. Duration, it lasts for a number of rolls, or a number of rounds equal to roll. Okay, Vortex of Doom. And that's pretty scary because, yeah, you can do this pretty much at will. Again, everything here only costs 1 use, which is going to be really important, because the last thing that I want to talk about, because that was the last telekinetic ability. We'll get into telepathy next time. But the thing that I wanted to point out is this. So before we leave, we're going to go over this. Everything that we've done today only costs 1 usage. That's why this 1 is here. When it comes to using these things on larger scales, like let's say if you wanted to use mind control, it'll cost you one point. For local, to like Gios or Quest, an entire town, it's going to cost you 5 uses of your daily allotment. Just as a reminder, the psychic powers you get per day are equal to your sensitivity times your character level. Which means that your Pi level Psyker will not be able to affect anything on the local level until they're level 5. Whereas your Alpha Psyker, would be able to do that 3 times a day at level 1. Now, for a regional, as in an entire state, province, territory, whatever, 25 uses per day. We are now into the levels where if you are a Pi or... yeah, basically if you're a Pi, you will never reach regional. If you are the next one up, which is, no, not Rho, Omicron, you could start doing regional stuff once per day once you got into the higher levels. But this is state, province, territory, whatever. Continental. So we're talking a quarter to a half of the planet that you're standing on. Now we're talking 125 uses. Now, how about we put this in context? Let's look at level 20 Psykers. The only people who would be able to actually do something on the continental level would be Kappas and up. Kappas would only get to do it once at level 20. The rest of them would go up more, but your Alpha class get 320 uses per day at level 20. Your Alpha category Psyker would be able to do a continental ability twice a day. Not quite 3 times, it doesn't go that high, but twice a day they would be able to do something on a continental scale. And then planetary. For a planetary ability, it will cost 250 uses. Now that's significant because, again, I just said, your Alpha class Psyker gets 320 points a day at level 20. They can do a planetary ability once. But you know who else can? Deltas. Since they have power level 13, if I multiply that by 20 levels, your Deltas have 260 points. A Delta can break a world once per day. And that is the absolute limit, because the next one down are Epsilons. And they only get 240 points a day. So they literally can't do it at all. So that's how that's going to work. Everything that we've done today is at the combat level. And so it only costs you 1 point. That means if you wanted to shoot fire or lightning, if you wanted to inflict status effects, if you wanted to, just rip walls apart with your mind, 1 point. it's pretty significant. But since a lot of this scales directly with your level, what you can actually do with it may depend. And JP says, gotta run. Well, thank you for coming out, JP. It was good to see you here. And I'm going to wrap things up here pretty quick, too. So, yeah. Everything here is very much dependent on your level and your sensitivity. Your sensitivity will never change, but your level will. So, that's how that's going to work. Overall, though, I think it's a good system. I'm liking it so far. Psykers are terrifying. However, we are really only looking at the effect that they can have on the world. We have to remember that Psykers are also just regular characters. A Psyker at level 1 is still only going to have like 6 hit points. Now, their abilities are going to be like way off the charts maybe. But if you shoot them, they still die. So, as powerful as they are kind of the epitome of a glass cannon. They are so very much cannon. But if they're not careful, if they're not smart, then they're not going to be able to do anything. They'll be dead. But, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's good to be back. It's good to be doing this, and I don't want to stop. I want to keep going, but I can't do that. I got to do stuff too, unfortunately. So, if you want to see what telepathy looks like, if you want to see what divination is going to look like, because those are going to be broken, just broken as hell. If you want to see what those look like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified whenever these videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into tabletop gaming or 40K in general, then share this video with them. But if you just like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, and I will see you next time for more 40K. And until then, take care.